Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight at today's Health and Human Service Committee meeting, Monday, June 7th, 2021. We are being broadcast live on HPA-TV and Channel 96 on Comcast and Frontier, and will be available in the future on HPA-TV's or Hartford Public Access TV's social media pages. So today we have a packed agenda, but let me start by introductions. And I'm going in terms of the tiles in front of me. So we have Attorney Osborne from the Corporation Counsel's Office. We have Leticia Cotto from the Hartford Public Library. We have Meg Horrigan from the Food Policy Commission. We have Councilwoman Rossetti, who is a voting member. We have Director Arroyo from Health and Human Services. We have Majority Leader TJ Clark, who is a committee member. And then we have Vaz, and Vaz, I'm just gonna leave it right there, but Vaz Extraordinaire, leave it like that, so I don't mess up any names. So thank you all for attending tonight. So the first call to order is Mayor Bronin with a company resolution authorizing the City of Hartford's Department of Health and Human Services to receive $1.9 million in funding and execute contracts and contract amendments with the State Department of Public Health through its DEPF program, which is funding vaccine outreach in cities across the state. Just as a record here, Majority Leader Clark is recused, I believe, Clark, Majority Leader. And this is agenda item number 6 on the May 24th council agenda. So I believe Director Webb is here. Excuse me, Director Arroyo is here to speak on this item. Director, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you, everyone. So this program is the program that the State of Connecticut Department of Public Health released funding for. They announced the funding of it, the availability of funding in March. Applications were available on April 1st and were submitted by April 15th. We have since received notification of our award, but final details are being worked out. But essentially, this funding is going to allow us to expand the work for a short period of time over the next 4 months to do outreach around vaccines and increasing access, as well as increasing information about vaccines to community members in an effort to increase the number of individuals in our community who are vaccinated. And so we have several partners. The types of partners that we had to have were outlined by the actual grant application. So we had to partner with providers, vaccine providers. In addition to us being a vaccine provider, we had to partner with other vaccine providers in the community, as well as with other organizations, community-based organizations that would be able to expand our reach. And so our partners on this program are Hartford Healthcare as one of the largest vaccine providers in the city, followed by Trinity Health of New England, another large vaccine provider in the city, Charter Oak Health Network, and Intercommunity. So those are the additional vaccine providers that we would be working with. A lot of their work will be focused on doing outbound calls, as well as doing dedicated work to reach members of our community here in the city. Our CBO partner, we are partnering with the United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut. They will be working with a set of organizations that we've worked with under our CDC flu grants, as well as other groups that we've worked with as part of that. So they will be managing the CBO part through the network that they work with, and that network will include churches as well as other community-based organizations. But that's essentially the work that this grant would cover. We're also looking at doing additional media work, including working with community members to create user-generated content that we can use in media campaigns, so that our community members are speaking directly to our other members of the community about why they should get vaccinated and why it's important to get vaccinated. So rather than having someone from outside of the community do that, we would have people that live in the city of Hartford, and we would be able to compensate them for that effort as well. So that's generally the grant in a nutshell. It is a very shortened time frame. It's only 4 months. 1 month has already passed. We're still finalizing some of the contract with the state to be able to launch in the next week or so with our partners.
Thank you, Director. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to my colleagues.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I feel it's pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you. Majority Leader, I know you recused yourself. So just a question, how many jobs total is it, Director?
So there are no jobs being created through the Department of Public Health, through our department, because it is a short-term grant of 4 months, but there will be compensation to community-based organizations for their outreach and the work that they're doing. So I can't quantify that in jobs, but I can quantify that we will be paying our experts in our own community, the organizations that work with them, to be able to do that work. So if churches are organizing caravans or doing special events, many of them have health ministries. Sometimes they're volunteers, sometimes they do pay those individuals. So we would have access, they would have access to funding to be able to do that work. The same thing with community-based organizations. I think you've known that the vast majority of the funding that I bring in to the department has gone out, with very rare exceptions on certain grants that we just need to keep in-house because we need to build the capacity in-house to do the work over the long term. But this funding, the reality is the overwhelming majority of the funding is going out. We're keeping, I think, maybe $50,000 of it in-house. Everything else is going out to our community partners to pay to keep people on board longer periods of time, if that's what they need to do, or to hire additional folks on a short time on a temporary basis to complete the work.
Thank you for that, Director. And just one more question. Who's quarterbacking this from the department? Would you be quarterbacking this?
Yes, so I'm working closely with our partners. We will be starting, hopefully meeting in this upcoming week, if not early next week, to sort of really map out calendars and things like that so that we can announce a slate of events in addition to what they're already doing, expanding some of what they're already doing, but also then just other events that we might want to participate in.
Great, thank you. Seeing no more questions, I'll take a motion. Any motion out there?
I make a motion to accept the grant.
All right, I second the motion. Any conversations or any communications? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, resolution passed. Thank you, Director.
Mr. Chair,
And
just for the record,
should it be noted that TJ abstains?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, TJ.
Please note that for the record, Majority Leader
myself.
Bart abstains. For the record. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
No, not abstention. I recuse myself.
Oh, recuse, yes. I apologize. Let me make a note of that. All right, great. And so just announcing here that Director Sanchez, Councilman Sanchez has just joined us. Thank you, Councilman, for joining us today. And Director, you're welcome to stay on. I'm not sure if any of the other items come across, but you're welcome to stay on this for as long as you like.
I'll stay on for a little bit before I have to give dinner to my kids.
Okay, all right. I was going to ask you what you were cooking, but I'm not going to delay any longer.
It's what's being delivered.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, moving on to item number 3, which is a resolution requesting that the mayor's office to provide more consistent administrative support dedicated to translation services for Hartford, Puerto Rican, Latin, and Hispanic communities. This was supported by Council President Rosado, Councilman Sanchez, Councilman Rossetti, Councilwoman Surgeon, Councilman Gale, and Councilman LeBron. And so I believe that is Ms. Cotto. Is that correct? All right, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So the city of Hartford budgeted $10,000 towards translating and interpreting services, recognizing the need to be able to communicate with the varied demographics that we have in our city. And I think that was a result of recommendations that were put forth from the Commission of Refugee and Immigrant Affairs to the City of Hartford to really be intentional about ensuring that communication goes out in various languages, especially when it comes to critical information like COVID and important things like that, that resources are allotted for communication to be sent out effectively for non-English speaking constituents. Last year, in last year's budget, there was $10,000 that was allotted to that, and the Hartford Public Library is fiscally managing that money. Since it was allotted, there have been 10 requests from the various departments in the city for translation and interpretation services at meetings, translating of documents. There is a translator presently working on, this is just an example, translating a huge report from the police department into Spanish. And a lot of the requests that have come through are for Spanish translation or interpretation. The way that the process is set up is for the viability of translating and interpreting in 7 different languages. The languages that we've identified that are mostly spoken in Hartford, those include French Creole, that includes of course, Spanish, Portuguese, and a few others. But the requests that have come through thus far have been for Spanish translation and interpretation. There are a lot of departments that are taking advantage of this resource, and I have to say that it's a move in the right direction.
So I'll open it up to my colleagues if they have any questions.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as one of the sponsors of the resolution, obviously, I'm supportive of it, and I continue to believe that certainly language shouldn't be a barrier, and I think at times we put undue pressure on people. And as someone who doesn't speak another language, and I am sad that I don't, I'm glad that we're able to continue to make this easier in our city of many, many languages. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Councilman Sanchez, Majority Leader Clark, any questions?
No, I don't have any question, but I am proud to be a sponsor of this resolution, and thank you, Leticia, for for everything that you do and always being on top of our the communication with the Latino community. What you do is tremendous. It's long been respected. I know you've been in the city born and raised, right? With me, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to having this implemented and more. Thank you.
Majority Leader, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions really. Just proud to support this, and I thank Leticia Colon for her advocacy and her efforts, and looking forward to making this policy of the city.
Thank you, Majority Leader. So I have one question for you, Ms. Cotto.
Yeah.
And so the question I have is more consistent administrative support. That's part of the resolution. Would you say that we're okay right now in terms of the support that you're receiving? Needs to get better, or that is a non-issue at this point?
So I would say that definitely $10,000 goes but so far, and the needs, I think the more that the department heads recognize that this resource is out there for them, more requests are coming in, so those requests are going to increase. And then there's another, Oakland, California, the city of Oakland is using a service that kind of does what we have set up here to do with that $10,000, where the Hartford Public Library is in the middle, connecting the departments with interpreters or translators and fiscally managing this money. There is a platform already set up that kind of does this, and the city of Oakland, California, they're pretty good about inclusive services, and they have a platform that they use that I would recommend the city looking into in order to increase capacity and making this more efficient.
Thank you. So, Ms. Cotto, I have one kind of statement / question. Let's see how it comes out. So, in your opinion, oftentimes there are agencies, organizations, departments, businesses where they say, hey, listen, we have a staff person who is bilingual, and therefore they ask that bilingual person to do all their translations. Would you recommend that, or do you recommend, folks utilizing more professional advanced services?
I would recommend any institution to really look at the service and the need that's out there for the audience that they're serving, and to adequately resource that service. So when we're talking about inclusivity and equity, if we recognize that this is important, then we have to adequately resource it. And what does that look like for whatever organization? That's different. So with the city, like I said earlier, I think this is a move in the right direction, where $10,000 were identified to start this, and looking at how to sustain it and how to make it more effective will incorporate identifying what does adequately resourcing that service look like.
Thank you, Ms. Cotto. I just want to admittedly say, in my previous years, a while ago, I thought the same thing in terms of, okay, we have someone who's bilingual, and I made a lot of mistakes in terms of marketing and outreach materials to parents. Spanish, the ability to speak Spanish and the ability to be able to translate Spanish in a professional manner is the reason why people go to school and are professionals in that aspect. So, all right, with that being said, I do have a question for Corporation Counsel, Attorney Osborne. So I don't think that we need to vote pot. This is just a request to the mayor's office. Do we need to vote on this?
I guess you could just report back with a favorable recommendation, or
So
something of that nature.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Attorney Osborne. I'll entertain a motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to entertain a motion that we send a favorable report back to council with our recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so moved. All right, any discussions? All right, we have
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Just for the record, I do apologize. I said Leticia Colon, and I meant to say Leticia Coppola.
Okay.
I know better. I'm so sorry. I don't like to do that. I'm sorry, Leticia.
It's okay.
Right. So thank you for that, Majority Leader. So we have a motion, and that has been seconded. Any comments? All right, seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Any abstains? All right, seeing none, so moved. Favorable recommendation will go back. So, Ms. Cotto, you're welcome to stay. Thank you for coming on and joining us this evening and giving us an update.
Thank you. I'll stay on.
Okay. All right, the next item is a resolution. Item number 4, resolution requesting that the Puerto Common Council calls on representatives from the Hartford Public Library and the Mayor's Office to provide an update on progress of this taxpayer-funded initiative, and that the city's Office of Community Engagement provide a biannual report to the Puerto Common Council on its efforts to engage, inform, educate Hartford's refugee and immigrant families. This was supported by Council President Rosado, Councilman Sanchez, Councilwoman Rossetti, Councilman LeBron, Councilman Gale, and Councilwoman Bermudez. So, Vaz, I believe this is you. Is this you, Vaz?
Yes, Councilman. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see everyone. Happy to talk about our sort of citywide efforts to engage and support our immigrant community and refugee community. I'll start sort of broadly. You know, over the last year, obviously the biggest issue we faced was the virus, and in addition to the sort of the operational aspects of preparing for the virus, working with many stakeholders, primarily as it related to you know, basic needs, as it relates to testing, and now as it relates to vaccinations. Aside from the operational part of it, obviously a large part of our mission was to educate and to get information out there. We primarily did that through the mayor and through Director Arroyo, and through both you know, media appearances and interviews on news platforms. So, if you recall, for large portions of the year, we would have a almost daily press event that was 99% of the time it was bilingual. We had town halls that were bilingual. We had we did a good amount of advertising, paid advertising that was bilingual. We did Liani and the mayor had standing interviews on smaller neighborhood-based, not neighborhood-based, but smaller, particular Hispanic, Latino radio channels. So big picture, that's one way we tried to communicate about the virus in ways that were accessible to our immigrant refugee communities, particularly Spanish speakers. Then getting a little bit more detailed than that, Liani can talk about this more if you like, but Liani, very early on in the vaccination process, reached out to Malta House and has been running sort of very directed opportunities for Malta House to vaccinate the residents that they serve, primarily undocumented residents in the city. Liani's department also, sort of independent of the virus, their WIC office, which works with pregnant women and women with children under the age of 5, obviously they serve everyone in the city without you know, discrimination based on their documentation status, and that program does serve some undocumented women. In addition to the WIC program, HHS also has a home visitation program that's also offered without regard to immigration status. When it comes to testing in particular, there's a lot of concern about, you know, the kind of documentation required, whether insurance was required, whether ID was required, et cetera. So part of HHS's communication effort was to make sure that residents knew that they should feel totally comfortable getting a test, particularly at the Arroyo Center in our a majority Hispanic neighborhood that I think at this point has done, you know, I think over 70,000 rapid tests. In addition to the work that Liani and her department do directly, they gave through the United Way a contract to Marielino Latino Way to do education media bilingual on all aspects of the virus, but particularly vaccinations. The department, switching gears a little bit from Liani's department, Kim's department, as you all know, leads our early learning center work. We have one of the oldest early learning programs, I believe in the state. Those early learning opportunities are obviously available to all members of our community, regardless of their documentation status. And Kim's department does do some, because of the relationships that they've built with people, they do have a number of undocumented families who take advantage of our early learning centers. And they also do a good amount of referrals when a family gets to trust Kim's department. They often will share various needs they have, and Kim's department is pretty good referring those families to whatever services that they may need. Lastly, when it comes to specific legal support for refugees and immigrants, there are two things happening this year that are new and different than past years. First of all, the city has contributed $100,000 to Greater Hartford Legal Aid. That money will go to their sort of general operating needs, but the reason that we gave them this funding was that they have a particular program that works with immigrants and refugees who are victims of violence, and the reason they have this particular program is that they often, in their experience, have seen women who are in relationships that are abusive, where their documentation status is used as a sort of leverage by their partners to continue being abusive. In addition to that, separate from that, you all probably know this already, but the city is finalizing an agreement with New Haven Legal Aid Association to pilot the Universal Representation Program, which would be free legal services to Hartford residents facing deportation, and that agreement should be finalized very shortly. So that's sort of a quick overview of how the different departments, or some of our departments that are most engaged in this work, are trying to support our entire community, including refugees and immigrants. Happy to answer any questions.
So thank you for that, Vaz. Any questions from my colleagues? So Vaz, I have a quick question. So the biennial report, is it due this year? Is it due next year?
So I believe that that request is in this resolution. Certainly it's up to the council what you'd specifically like to request. I would recommend asking for that report to be included in the budget process as a component of either the mayor's office presentation or the COO's presentation, whichever you prefer. I would recommend actually it be in the mayor's office presentation. So we would be happy to include that as a component of that report. That's how I would. That's what I think makes the most sense.
Thank you, Vaz. Any comments on the reporting status from my colleagues? I'd like to welcome Councilman Gale has joined us, who's also a committee member. Hello, Councilman. All right. So seeing no comments or questions. Sorry to be dense here, Attorney Osborne, but this is just, again, calls on representatives to provide a biennial report. Do we need to vote on this? Or should we just document that we're calling on the library and the mayor's office to put it in the budget? Do we need to switch that around? What would be your recommendations, Attorney?
I'd similarly recommend moving to report favorably to the council. As stated by Vaz.
So just to jump in for a sec, so I think that what might make sense, if you do want to go in the direction of asking for it to be included in the budget, then I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Damar, but you would make a motion to amend the item and then report it favorably back to the council.
Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, I agree with Vaz, although I'm not a voting member here, that would be the case from my experience, that you would, someone would make a motion to send it to council favorably with an amendment, friendly amendment.
All right, thank you. Does any of my voting colleagues want to do that right now?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move favorably as a favorable recommendation to the next council meeting as amended.
I'll second that.
All right, motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all that vote in favor say aye. Aye. So moved. Passed unanimously. Thank you for that, Vaz. So we're going to move on to item number 5, which is Mayor Bronin with a company annual report submitted on behalf of the Advisory Commission on Food Policy for the City of Hartford. This annual report is mandated by City Ordinance and recounts the activities of the Commission for 2020. So Ms. Meg Corrigan, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, and thanks for having me. I don't know if everybody was able to review a copy of the annual report. I just wanted to briefly summarize some of the activities. The Food Policy Commission was producing like a weekly guide on where to find food and different food resources, and just keeping updates on guidelines and farmers markets and all those different things in our pandemic guide. That slowed to like every couple weeks and then to every month, and we did stop doing that recently. The main part of the annual report, though, is really our policy recommendations, and we sorted them into 3 main areas in this past year in terms of looking at how to improve the food system and make it more resilient to disruptions, especially around COVID, that had a lot of different lessons. And so those 3 main recommendations are around investing in restoring and assisting food businesses, and really tying the food business recovery to higher paying jobs, making sure that people who are working to serve and stock grocery shelves and all of the different pieces of the food system, everybody who's involved in getting food to our plates, receive a living wage and is safe in their work. Addressing food insecurity, we would love to, the Food Policy Commission generally works on the assumption that we should be working toward nobody needing food pantries on a regular basis, but in the meantime, being able to support all those different efforts. And we're looking at some different policy options, like at the federal level, increasing SNAP benefits, protecting and expanding eligibility for those different types of benefits, and some advocacy at the state level for farm to school and increasing local food purchasing in schools. And then finally, we are looking at different ways to increase the amount of food that is grown in Hartford. So different ways to support urban farms and community gardens, ways to support school gardens throughout the city of Hartford. I don't know how much time I have on the agenda or anything like that. I just wanted to summarize the 3 main areas. And we've been working both some federal level advocacy, but also with our Hartford delegation at the Capitol on a couple of different bills that have come up that align with our food policy recommendations. And I did also just want to flag that the Food Policy Commission also submitted to City Council some changes to our founding ordinance. The commission was founded in 1991, and the ordinance has mostly been unchanged since then. So we have some recommendations somewhere along the way in the process of expanding our membership, requiring that at least 2/3 of the membership are Hartford residents, as well as introducing term limits so that we can hear more voices of Hartford around different food issues in the city. And so there's a summary of that as well in our annual report. And I'm happy to take any questions about the content. Again, I didn't want to walk through page by page of the report, but I am happy to answer any questions and that you may have today or whenever.
Any questions from my colleagues? So, Ms. Horrigan, thank you for your for the report. I did get to eyeball it for a little bit. One of the things that I saw on the report was there was a lot of mention about stores. Can you tell me about your thoughts on the relationship of the bodegas to the communities and just your overall general consensus? And did the Food Policy Commission engage in that type of conversation at all or work?
Yeah, well, are you just talking about like the different types of food that you can get at bodegas or
right.
who,
basically, yeah, right.
Yeah, I think a lot in like healthy food spaces that bodegas can get a pretty bad rap for being selling unhealthy foods and things like that. And I think that it's important to take a broader understanding of that because they so often are community members and even in some cases may be not fully food secure themselves as they're running these businesses. And we haven't taken any direct approaches recently toward, you may be familiar with like healthy corner store programs where using like city funds to put more fruits and vegetables into corner stores. We haven't really been doing anything around that recently, and we've actually just been more so focused on what are known as mid-sized grocery stores. So if you think about Seatown and working with the owners at Seatown, Hartford Food System, for example, has been working with the Seatown on Weathersfield Avenue to flag, to like label and promote local food. There's actually pretty frequently like local apples and different things that will end up in grocery stores outside of farmers markets, and it might not even be labeled as local food. But we're running an incentive program there so you can purchase more fruits and vegetables using SNAP or food stamps, stretching those SNAP dollars. So we've been looking at mid-sized markets just because obviously like there's always going to be more options in those stores, and that's where we've been focused on our efforts. But there's also efforts to bring a full-size grocery store into or near the downtown north development. And I'm happy to connect anybody to that work that's going on too, but not really focus on corner stores, just in terms of where commissioners and our guests have had interest lately.
So thank you for that. I agree. So I just want to just throw out that there's a program at Milner School, and it's called Bodega Runs. And the goal of it is to teach parents. It's funded by Cigna. And the goal of the program is obviously to address a lot of food insecurity issues. And so one of the things that the Milner community thought of was the access to bodegas and what can you get healthy for bodegas. And I agree, they do get a bad rap. You have to, really search. But and so what the program is designed to do is to help young folks or young scholars to, how do you, if you got $1, what can you buy? If you got $2, what can you buy, as opposed to getting, a quarter juice and like what I would get a non-later Doritos and a quarter juice. That's what I would get. Or I did get. And so changing their process, but also, bringing in the parents where they're having parent workshops discussing, or piggybacking or reinforcing what would be healthy. And so when they give them that $1 to go to the store, that they come back with those items, right? And so it's reinforced that way. And it is like, one of the things that I've seen is like plantain chips or water instead of, those type of things, or a piece of fruit. those type of things. So, if the commission, I know you guys are busy and stretched. I'm sure everybody but if you guys ever want to take a time to engage with them, I can help connect you with that program. Yes.
I would love that. And yeah.
Councilwoman Rossetti?
Oh, no, Meg, do you want to answer first and then I'll ask my question?
Well, yeah, by interest, all I mean is that, the work of the commission is driven by the people who are in attendance, whether they're and usually like guests have, except in voting, which is kind of rare anyway on an advisory commission, equal voice and say. And so I would love to be connected with the people who are organizing the Milner School. It's not really the Milner School activities there. It's not really that's really just like we're working where there's energy, and being connected to more of those efforts across the city can build out all of our strategies so that we're not just looking at big grocery stores and mid-sized grocery stores. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think they have a really engaged parent group, so we might be able to find some commission members from over there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Councilwoman Rossetti?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, this is a question I have received from a resident, and again, it may be a broader conversation, but the question is, how are the commission assisting local farmers of color to bring Hartford locally grown produce to the people in our food deserts?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There's a couple different things going on. One thing that comes to mind is that Hartford Public Schools is purchasing, I don't have up-to-date numbers. I only really have the data that we collected for the report. But it was, and I can try to pull this up. There's a significant amount of food being purchased from farmers who are involved with Knox Gardens across the city, several of whom are farmers of color, to be getting their food into Hartford Public School meals, which is really exciting. And we're also connected with the farmers markets across the city and looking at different, trying to just do the promotion for the farmers markets so that people know that actually most of the markets in Hartford accept, and many of them go further than accepting SNAP or food stamps. They double up to a certain amount. So just there's some research that was done a couple years ago was that people were aware that farmers markets might be in their community, but they weren't necessarily aware that you could use your EBT card, and further that you could spend $20 on your EBT card and actually get $40 worth of produce. So being able to do that outreach. I'm not sure if it's running right now, but there's a radio ad that a working group of the commission is running. And I think actually in the Health and Human Services waiting rooms, there's a video about the farmers markets. So just doing that outreach because many of Hartford's farmers are already selling at those markets. And they're selling foods that are culturally important to them and to many of their neighbors. So just doing that outreach, certainly. And really doing like more promotion of the fact that you can grow food in Hartford, that it's permitted, and we really encourage it. The Food Policy Commission worked with the Planning and Zoning Commission when they updated our whole zoning codes a few years ago. So people can and are encouraged to be growing food.
So thank you for that.
Your constituent is, I would love to share any information about the commission to invite them, especially if they have ideas, because again, this is a citizen commission. The ideas and the passion really are driven by Hartford residents participating in the commission. So if they have additional ideas and goals for increasing food grown in Hartford, we really would love to talk to them.
Thank you. And I appreciated your cat's tail.
Yeah, he likes to make himself known.
So thank you for that. I'm glad you mentioned the garden. I just spent the weekend gardening. Let's see how we do this year.
Yeah.
Squash and tomatoes. I don't know. We'll see how we'll do. I also have some strawberries, but they're a hanging one that hang from my porch. So I didn't plant that. Let's just hope I can water it effectively, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah.
So with that being said, I think, Mega, thank you for your commitment to the commission. and for the comprehensive 23-page report. It's much appreciated. You know, I encourage all my council colleagues to, you know, take the opportunity to peruse, eyeball, you know, dive deep into it, as it's very thorough. And I also appreciated the recommendations on how you think the commission should be structured. The structural proposals, I think, is how you worded it. So with that being said, that is the last item on the agenda. Is there any other business? I know we have another meeting at 7 o'clock. All right, seeing no other business, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. You could be anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with us on this hot day, so we appreciate it. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.